Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment on the weekend show. Because of the topics which we will be talking about today, we're having a bit of a blend where we're going to treat several issues at several points in time. And it's only fair that we start with what's affecting Nigerians the most. When there's a fuel price increase, it literally increases the price of every single thing in Nigeria, which means your haircut is going to cost more, your braiding your hair, food, transportation. I felt really sad driving in Abuja yesterday and I saw a huge amount of people walking. Like most people can't even afford the roadside taxis anymore. And this isn't even the likes of Uber and Bolt. Most people had to walk from one stop to the other to be able to get cheaper ways of going to work. More people are relying on public transport, which makes me wonder. The president and this administration has said they're launching CNG buses and plans. And recently what we saw were about 30 were being launched, and we only saw about 5 of those. The government has had 1 year to find solutions to at least fix public transport. I must commend them for the rail system, but within cities, maybe we need to do better. But I have a guest here who I will be talking to give a better perspective, Dr. Francis Okoye, who is a public affairs analyst. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the weekend show, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Talking about what it is, Nigerians are complaining. It's quite easy and straight to the point. And the president keeps on saying we need to wait. You also hear the president saying things will get worse before it gets better. But we are seeing presidential jets being replaced. We are seeing government property being renovated. What's your thought around all of this?
First of all, I want to make the world know that what Nigeria is facing today was not a creation of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The only fact that we are establishing here is that some of the policies he's really embarking on within the last 1 year plus of his administration are not really good enough. Those policies are biting hard on Nigerian citizens. Before people misunderstand me, I was part of the people that made Tinubu president today. I am a member of APC Presidential Campaign Council of 2023 that enthroned Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I am still a core Tinubulist and a core APC member. But I am a Nigerian. I am first a Nigerian before I become an APC member. I drove from my house, Lubwe, to this very place with a black market fuel that I bought a liter at 1,200 naira. So I will not say I'm not having the bite of what we are really facing today. So to me, I think that policy of increasing fuel pump price came at a very wrong time in the life of this administration. I heard the other day that they are doing this to mop up revenue in order to take care of social amenities like road, schools, and other infrastructures. See, it is when Nigerians are alive that they can go to school. It is when Nigerians are alive that they can go to drive on the roads you are building. It is when Nigerians are alive that they can go and get medical care from those hospitals you are building. So I think it is a wrong decision from our own president, my president that I followed to enthrone, to support this idea of increasing fuel pump price at this point in time. It is a wrong decision. I condemn it in its entirety because Nigerians are passing through a lot. We shouldn't add to their plight. In as much as I support some of the policies of the government that are geared towards raising money for us to take care of some of these amenities he mentioned. But the area of fuel pump price is a no-go area for now. I think, Mr. President, I'm appealing to him to please reconsider that decision of increasing the fuel pump price. That is my take this morning.
You mentioned that this didn't just originate today, didn't just start today.
Yes.
But I recall in 1999, President Olusegun Obasanjo blamed the military era. Goodluck Jonathan came in and had his fair share of people to blame. And then there was change in 2015. President Muhammadu Buhari spent his 8 years blaming the PDP government. Now it's Bola Ahmed Tinubu. At what point will President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his team and party take responsibility and say we are failing in major areas and we should have changes? May 29th passed or June 12th, no cabinet reshuffle, nothing.
There will be a cabinet reshuffle soon. I can assure you that as an inner caucus in this administration, I can assure you that there will be a major cabinet reshuffle. I don't need to start mentioning names of some of the ministers or heads of agencies, parastatals that have failed in the responsibilities they have been given to really ensure that policies that they bring out or some of the ideas that they churn out or advice they give the president are those advice that will be pro-people, not anti-people. I know a good number of them. I wouldn't mention them. So, but I'm assuring you that the president is going to reshuffle his cabinet, to rejig it in order to ensure that some of these people who have not lived up to expectation are sent away and new people brought on board.
So it's one thing to rejig it by reshuffling, but there seems to be a trend where it's like people are just being brought in to be settled. I saw the appointment, I think, in the humanitarian ministry recently in different parastatals, and it looks like they're just bringing SAs and SSAs from Lagos State to come fill in position, and other people is political parties. When
into government offices come from should not matter at this point in time. Whether they are coming from Lagos, like you are mentioning, I saw the last list you are talking about in terms of humanitarian
Yes.
ministry. Yes, there are people from other tribes that are equally there. But the issue is that it's not even where we shouldn't, at this point in our national development, we shouldn't be emphasizing on ethnicity in appointment. Wherever the person comes from shouldn't matter. But what matters is that does that person have the capacity? Now, let me give you an instance. There is this particular woman that was appointed among this humanitarian ministry you are talking about, that was appointed to head a national homegrown school feeding program. She's a PhD holder. She was a former SA, former council chairman, who has held sway and made sure she proved her mettle in those offices she has held. She not qualified. Coming from Lagos shouldn't make it look like she is not qualified. The issue is this. See, sometimes we don't get it right in the area of those people who, when they enter office, they don't perform. They will have good credentials, and when they are appointed or sworn into office, they tend to allow the offices to overwhelm them. They tend to allow frivolity. See. It is high time government officials, government appointees at all levels, I'm saying this with all sincerity and with all audacity, at all levels, do away with frivolous spending, opulence lifestyle, all this lifestyle of jamboree, traveling unnecessarily, appointing series of SAs. You can be made an SA to the president, you have 1,000 SA. You can be made an SA to the governor, you have 500 SA. All these things should be done away with to ensure that we cut costs, to ensure that we fight corruption to the last minimum, barest minimum. These are areas that we can make sure that we mop up those money we are looking for elsewhere through fuel pump price and put into the economy, put into uplifting our infrastructures. I think that's what we should do.
Talking about that, I would like to revisit the point which you made about it doesn't matter where anyone's from. And I 100% agree with you. I have a team here, and there's someone I've worked with for a couple of months. And today was the first time I asked, which state are you from? I don't care about it. It's about getting the job done. But constitutionally also, the Constitution speaks about federal character, where there should be full representation. But you just spoke about corruption and mopping up funds. The last administration, we've seen several cases of people who were involved in corruption scandals and the likes. The EFCC chairman was removed. The CBN governor was removed. The humanitarian minister has been suspended since January, February with no replacement. You've had several cases and people being invited to the ICPC, EFCC, and the likes. But Nigerians are yet to see any real action from President Tinubu where there is some form of deterrent or repercussion for all these people who have moved money or the other. It's over 1 year. Why haven't we seen any move in reducing corruption and actually pulling this money back and where it's going to?
So far, nobody has been taken to court or prosecuted under the Tinubu administration in the area of corruption. So far, Nobody has been charged to court. I don't have any idea of anybody among Tinubu's government appointees. You can talk about those arrested that were part of Buhari regime. But as far as those of them under Tinubu regime, nobody has been
No, but you've
accused of
had
any corrupt.
humanitarian ministry where besides the minister, it was
Yes,
reported that someone moved 30 billion in 3 days. It's
The
one thing
matter
to
is still in
summon
court.
them. It's one thing to summon them to ICPC, EFCC, and court. It's another thing for them to actually get prosecuted. Why is it taking so
The
long?
judiciary should do their work
No,
with
but
you.
we've seen journalists being arrested, charged, and locked up. We've seen people for spraying money being arrested, charged. So why?
I
what's good for
understand
the
where
goose should be good for
I
the
understand
gander?
where you're going.
Yes.
We are going into the area of the speed with which they
Yes.
prosecute poor people
Isn't
should equally be
corruption more
used in
important?
prosecuting the elites. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. If I say I don't agree with you, then I am being truthful by half.
That's
I
very good
agree
of you.
with
I'll let you come back. But we have Tijani Mayowa joining us virtually. Good morning, Tijani. It's always good having you on the weekend show. We have seen the increase in fuel prices. We've seen the rally between the Naira and dollar and depreciation. What's your overview of how these new changes would affect families and businesses?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me again. The reality is that, of course, for the first time, I think it was last month that Nigeria began to see a fall in inflation prices. And we were hoping that we're out of the woods and prices were going to start going down. But unfortunately, with the new hike in petrol prices across the nation, the first thing that is going to happen is that those prices are going back up. Because, of course, as we know, transportation affects almost every fabric of the economy as we know it today. So the first thing that businesses will start to feel going from as immediate as this week or next week is that prices are going to go up. Some businesses that are not able to manage those price change effectively may actually get kicked out of businesses. So the reality is that if something is not done immediately to particularly manage how all of that happened, that means all the struggles that we went through between June last year to maybe like September is what we're about to go through all over again. So, of course, all the way it has affected us that we are familiar with, we're just about to have a repeat of that.
So, and this is quite interesting, Maya. However, what this trends leading to? So, forecasting, where does this leave Nigeria on a global level, especially because there was a lot of reliance on Dangote refinery getting to work. Interestingly, on the day Dangote refinery was meant to start, the NNPC had said, oh, they would offtake all the fuel, which also means setting of prices. But on the same day, fuel prices went as high as 866 in some places. I bought fuel from a petrol station yesterday at 945, which is what 65 naira cheaper from black market 5 days ago. Where does this leave Nigeria in its financial situation?
So this is something that sort of has worried me for a bit now. The whole Naira situation that we are going to, or that has been promised is going to happen between Dangote and the NNPC. Of course, you must have heard this narrative that is going to take away a lot of pressure from the Naira. But if you look at it critically, that may actually not eventually be the case. Because if we are saying, okay, for example, let's say Nigeria is pumping 1.6 million barrels of oil. All of that 1.6 million barrels is sold in the past. And then we earn Forex, and that Forex is what we use to buy petrol from the international market. Now, what is going to happen now is that we still have 1.6 million. I don't know what the exact numbers would be, but let's say the NNPC gives 600,000 barrels to Dangote refinery, means that we now have 1 million barrels that is going to the international market. So that reduces how much we earn in terms of Forex from the international market. Also reduces our dependence on the international market quite all right. But the net pressure that this is supposed to take away from the Naira is not going to happen except to increase pumping globally. And of course, that increase in price, if you ask me, and of course, this is my opinion, is also a preparation for the Dangote refinery. based on what global gasoline prices are saying, we cannot keep prices at 630 or 600 and whatever we were putting that before. We need to reflect a more global price if we are not going to continue paying the heavy burden of subsidy. So I don't think that the coming of Dangote refiner in this in itself totally solves the problem. Of course, it solves the problem of scarcity, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to buy from for cheaper.
Final question for you, Maiwa. Besides the petroleum or the crude oil sector, what other sectors in Nigeria has prospect at the moment? Because I've seen this administration has gone with the new trend of the blue economy, and so maritime is now a big conversation. Solid minerals, which means mining. It's been 1 year. Are there any potentials in this sector for Nigeria? And then there's also agriculture as usual.
Exactly. So I feel like for the rest of the non-oil sector in Nigeria, there's a lot more that we can do in those sectors. But what also is necessary in those sectors is the investment. So, for example, if we look at mining, mining is one sector in Nigeria where we can make a lot of money, especially considering the global request for lithium, the increase in prices for gold. All of those things can actually bring us a lot of money, but it's not as automatic as anywhere else. We have to invest in mining. We have to invest in the whole infrastructure that can drive the production of the production and export of these very fine solid minerals that we have. And that is not something that is going to happen over a short period of time. Investing is going to take some time. And if we are not paying attention to it as quickly as possible, I don't see that changing in the short term. Then about agriculture, of course, we have a lot of advantage with agriculture, especially with cassava exports and all of that. But the reality is that because of how much need we have back home in terms of the food we need to eat, in terms of prices and the way they are going, we don't have enough to export. So we need to increase production at the local stage for agriculture. We need to invest in mining before we can expect any sort of change in that aspect.
Mayowa, I know I'd say the last question, but the president was just in China this week, and he signed about 5 MOUs, which I'm aware of, and one of those is a media cooperation between Nigeria and China. As a journalist, as an independent editor, and also with the cable, what are your thoughts about that? Considering that China isn't the most democratic country, we now have journalists complaining about being persecuted, albeit the fact that some of them are actually for legitimate reasons because some are breaking the laws. What do you think this means for Nigeria?
Of all the deals I saw the president signing with China, I never expect the media deal to sort of come up. And the reason is simple. China does not have the record. In fact, you can probably say that there's more freedom within the Nigerian press than we have in the Chinese press. And so signing that kind of deal with them is it's scary, as it might be a picture of things to come. But if we're looking on the bright side, we might also be that we're leveraging on technology available to Chinese in developing our own locally run state-owned companies. So, for example, if NTA is able to leverage the kind of technology that is available to the Chinese, then maybe there's a lot more that we can do in that aspect. So I feel like a lot of that collaboration should be some sort of technology transfer, not necessarily value transfer, if that
Thank you
makes
very
sense.
much, Maiwa, for your contribution and for always being here to give us economic advice and analysis. I have the head of information and public affairs of the National Labour Congress, Bessinupa, joining us for this conversation. Good morning, Mr. Ukpa, and I'll go straight to your question. When the NLC finished negotiations with the government, they had stated that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that one of the proposals by the president was that we need to accept at 70,000 naira to ensure that fuel prices aren't increased. Now fuel prices have gone higher, and we've seen several statements from different arms of government, which isn't really saying anything. Do you think the NLC was deceived, or what's the position of the NLC going forward with where we are right now?
Well, what I would say is that the government acted in bad faith, and he betrayed the confidence of NLC. But as we keep on explaining, the matter goes beyond NLC. The matter goes and encompasses the general welfare of Nigerians, their capacity to continue to live, to survive in a nation God brought them into. So that is the risk. As we are now, it has become very difficult for the citizens of this country to go about their businesses with confidence. Everybody is in a state of trauma and nightmare. And this government owes this country, owes the citizens of this country the duty of welfare, the duty of well-being, the duty of security, and all of that. So it goes beyond the issue of minimum wage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now that we are where we are, what do we expect from the NLC in the coming week and weeks? Because yes, there's been some bad faith here, and you, like myself, you've seen the plight of Nigerians in the markets, on the streets, the hardship going on. NLC is meant to be the defender of the people. Some Nigerians will claim that the last time NLC was talking about wage increase, we saw 150 NLC stakeholders, I think in Geneva, and after that they agreed to whatever was offered. So Nigerians really rely on the NLC to provide some form of defense for them. What should we see in the next coming days and weeks from the NLC, sir?
Oh yeah, yeah, you are right. NLC has an obligatory role to provide some shield, but Nigerians equally owe themselves the duty of care, the duty of protection, the primary duty of self-defense. That duty resides with Nigerians first and foremost. And I'm going to give you examples around the world. At the time we were having the End Hunger protests were also going on in UK. Protests led not by unions, but by aggrieved citizens of the UK. In Kenya, close by here, we have had a long-running protest against hunger and bad governance, not led by the unions, but by Kenyan citizens who felt sufficiently aggrieved. So the point I'm making is that while NLC sees itself as a vanguard, the duty of response does not primarily lie with the NLC. It lies with Nigerians who have been cornered, okay, who are facing this battering, this relentless battering. So that duty resides with them. As for NLC, as we said in our statement, the appropriate organs are going to meet shortly, and they will take decisions as they deem fit. And once those decisions are taken, they will be communicated to the public and government. That is our position.
Okay, thank you very much, Benson. If our head of Information and Public Affairs, NLC, we will continue observing and we'll get in touch with you if we need more updates. I would like to come to the studio where we have Suleiman Mande, who is Program Officer at CISLAC. Now, what he ended is quite important. The NLC has handed over to civil society organizations and NGOs by saying, look, in Kenya, they didn't need to have the Labour Congress holding government accountable. And when that passes in Nigeria, we now look at NGOs and CSOs to say, hey, fight for us. What now happens is that the House of Reps decides we should regulate these people. So the NLC have said, you know what, we'll be doing what we're doing to try to fix it. But what is your overview, first of all, on the current situation and economic hardship in the country vis-a-vis the new fuel price increase? What's your overview on it, and what role do you think CSOs and NGOs should now play at this point?
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here at this very critical moment in our nation's history. This is a very sad situation in the country, and this is something that experts, and even I remember most of the prominent civil society leaders in the country envisioned that we are going to be in this very dire situation if policies, effective policies are not in place to actually tackle the serious economic challenges in the country right before the inception of this administration. And I think what I have to say is that, there is a saying that goes that, a leadership must have a sense of vision, that the essence of leadership is that you have to have a vision. You can't blow an uncertain trumpet. And I think this is what has been happening in the country. Our leaders, especially in this administration, right from its inception, have been blowing from an uncertain trumpet, because there is clearly, it is now evident, everybody can see it, there is a serious lack of vision and foresight from this administration, in the sense that they, in the first place, don't know what they want to do, how they want to do it, why and when they should do it. There is no clearly defined plan, vision, that before I assume power, position of responsibility, this is what I plan to do, and these are the measures that I put in place. In the event that my policies cause unnecessary suffering to the people, these are the measures in place to tackle those problems. I give you an instance. You have a family. As a father, you have a wife, you have children. And so there is a need for you to take a so-called bold decision that will bring greater dividends in the future. Then it is expected that as the leader of that family, you clearly have a plan, because definitely you know that bold decision is going to affect the welfare of your family, their food, their clothing, their school. That decision will definitely affect your family. What should you do is to plan ahead of the decision, that I know this decision is going to affect my family, but these are the measures in place so that my family will not be greatly affected. So I think the present administration don't have this, active, pre-planned activities or measures to be put in place in the event that we find ourselves in the current situation we find ourselves. Definitely, everyone knows, even Mr. President, that we are going to come to this stage, and here we are. Everybody is crying. And so this is it. And I think what we need to do, and all the question is, what are civil society organizations doing and other NGOs? Of course, we have been doing a lot. I mean, I even told you that we envisioned that this is going to happen, and we spoke extensively about it. But, because we have a system that don't so much listen to the cries of the citizens, especially from the angle of the civil society, because we are considered as, opponents. And we are not. This is exactly what we don't want our country to be in. And this is exactly the reality of the situation. Had they listened that time, and we provided a recommendation, had they listened, I think maybe, I'm not going to say that we wouldn't be where we are, but at least the situation would have been far much better than we are today. So we have been doing a lot, and we'll continue to do it through advocacy, through public awareness on how to engage and hold their representatives accountable, because it's a question of national development. So in national development, there is this issue of collective responsibility. So it's going to be a collective work at this very critical time, because the challenges affect everyone. I think it's only those in power that are not affected by this, because they have pretty much everything they need. They don't need to go to fuel queues. They don't need to go to buy food. They don't need to go to supermarkets. They don't need to go to the hospitals. Even if it takes them going to the hospital, they're flying out. They don't need to maybe go to our universities and pay school fees. They fly their children outside to go for education and all that. It doesn't affect them. They don't know how Nigerians are feeling at the moment. They don't have that sensitivity. And I think there is a kind of disconnect between the leaders and those being led. So it's important that Mr. President look into these issues, and then even our representatives, those at the National Assembly and other parastatals, to see, look, what we are communicating is truly bringing negativity and sense of pessimism in the citizens. So what we need to do is to reconnect with the citizens. How do we do that? All right, maybe you as National Assembly members, you go back to your constituents, right? Go and talk to them. It's a question of communication. It's a question of conversation, having a positive conversation on these issues, so that you restore that trust and confidence in the institutions, so that the citizen will support any policy or decision that the government makes, so that they will also contribute effectively. That is how we build a strong and reliable nation. That is how we build a positive economy, so that everybody feels safe.
Suleiman, I think that's a very great submission. You've spoken to the problem, to what you saw coming and what's happening and what government should do. Because of time, Dr. Francis Okoye, I'll let you have the final words. Speak to your government and your party. Final words in 1 minute. What should be done at this point in time?
I am urging my president that I elected. As an APC member, Mr. President, please rejig your cabinet. That's number one. Sack those appointees that are not performing. Number two, as far as I'm concerned, Nigerians are passing through a lot. Hardship is on the high side. I am urging you and pleading, Mr. President, the issue of fuel pump price increase should be done away with. We don't need it at this particular point in time. Nigerians do not want it to be added to their ongoing crises and problems. I am pleading, Mr. President, please remove the increase in fuel pump price, so that at the end of the day, Nigerians who this increase has affected their transportation, feeding, and all whatnot will find a way to earn a living. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Final words?
Okay, dear Mr. President and dear Nigerians, leadership is an act of service. Leadership is an act of sacrifice. And whether we like it or not, all of us, to some extent, are leaders in our own way, in our own right. And so the best thing to do is to consider that we are all trying to build a better nation. We are trying to build Nigeria for the benefit of everyone, not for the benefit of just a few. So I think it is important that we reverse some of the policies that are affecting Nigerians negatively. If we don't have a strong and reliable society, which is characterized by people, positive people who are optimistic about their own nation, who are optimistic about their leadership, who are, always ready to contribute towards the development of the nation, then we will not have a nation. So I think it is important now, Mr. President and my dear Nigerians, that we look into these things. It is an act of sacrifice, like I mentioned, an act of service. The leaders at the top must make great sacrifices so that we have a Nigeria that works for everyone.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. That's the much we're going to take on the political segment. On the lighter note, it smells really, really nice in the studio, and that brings us to my favorite part of the day, which is the breakfast segment. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll have breakfast with Chef Salamatu, and after that, on lifestyle, we will be discussing solutions, innovation, and startups with an award-winning legal practitioner. Say that to Hamu Aliu. Don't go away. We'll see you after this break.